Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. Today we're talking about Where the Cyclamen Bloomed, an Invincible fanfiction. So, first, somewhat, not reading it, but talking about it. The details for this fanfiction will be in the description. This is sort of like a what if fanfiction. So, for like the first chapter, we focus on Will and like his backstory because he has powers. It's nothing like too, I'm supposed to say exciting, but he is able to read people's minds, right? So we follow him throughout his life. And it was like when he was 10 is when he first noticed. It was pretty obvious, right? He's 10, he's sitting in class, and suddenly he can hear his friend's thoughts just by like looking at him. And he knows he didn't say anything. And he looks around and he can, notice it. So this is when Ozzy, it's like, okay, power to read minds. Cool. And he thought that too, until it wasn't that great anymore because there's no filter, there's no off switch, it's just there. As soon as he looks at someone, instantly knows what they're thinking. There's nothing he can do. And so being in a classroom is one thing. It's kind of already, we're pushing the limits, especially like in a cafeteria. And then going to like a fair where everyone is, it's like, oh, this is too overwhelming. He can't do it. So it was during that is when he passed out because there's so many thoughts. He couldn't do it. He couldn't take it. And his parents didn't really know what was going on because he never told them. So he was laying in the hospital, and this is where he broke down crying because he really couldn't take it anymore. He's like, I can hear it. Like, even his parents, he could hear. So he's like, I can hear his thoughts. And obviously, because Power's government gets involved and they do some tests because don't know what we're dealing with. And he's like only 10. So, but after a couple of years of testing it is when they finally like create glasses. They look just like normal glasses, except this is like specially made for him and coding. So he can put them on and immediately the thoughts are silenced. And so from that down, like he just somewhat never took them off. He takes them off sometimes. Like if he needs to cheat on a test. Oh my, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. And he goes through life never really taking them off unless, necessary or kind of sparingly. And then he graduates and now he's starting university. And this is where he meets Mark. So obviously the timeline's a little shifted around a bit, but this is where he ends up meeting Mark. And because he just moved here, he had just moved there. And so he's there for university for his dorm. But they end up meeting because he goes to McDonald's and Mark just works there. And it was kind of like a cute, awkward conversation that they first had of, because clearly they've never seen him before. It's like, oh, I just moved here. It's like, I could be your dream McDonald's person. So they have kind of like a cute little awkward first kind of conversation. But obviously didn't think much of it. What a chance of them meeting until the next day, right? Classes, except Will immediately has to go back to his dorm because he had forgotten his notebook. And on the way back, he sees a familiar figure, right? Different clothes, obviously, but he's like, Mark? And so, because Mark's just there tying his shoe. And so it's like, yeah, I live here. It's like, oh, my dorm is over there. So practically neighbors. And this is when another little cute moment of like, well, I'll, wait here. Because they go to the same university, they find out. So he ends up waiting for Will to get his notebook and end up walking together. And it's such like a cute kind of, almost awkward, but not quite, like little moment between them. To the point where Mark, shyly kind of even says, he's like, I'm glad you forgot your notebook. Because, they're able to walk together. Since then, they've always just kind of like it didn't start as making time for each other. They've just bumped into each other because, it got to the point where Will would kind of start to memorize his schedule and Mark would start to make time for him. So they started purposely hanging out instead of just like whenever they would run into each other. So they started to memorize and make time for each other. And then one specific day, like both classes like are canceled, so they end up going to the library. And this is like where Will takes off his glasses, give himself a little break because it's library. No one's there, right? And then without thinking, because he hears Mark is like walking back, because who else would it be? And he ends up looking at him again without his glasses. He's not thinking. And this is where, Mark makes a comment like, oh, I've never seen you without your glasses. And because off, obviously, the first thought that he hears is, wow, his eyes are so pretty. And so immediately he's flustered and just shoves them back on his face because he's like, oh, you don't need to hear that. So he, but they don't even end up studying that long before Mark ends up looking down at his phone and he immediately kind of makes an excuse to leave. And he's like, oh, sorry about this. Like, and Will excuses it saying like, it's fine. And obviously, we kind of know it's like, okay, so Mark, even though timeline's kind of shuffled around here, we still know like, okay, Mark's dealing with like hero things, but Will doesn't know that. But he ends up leaving his umbrella and wallet. And so Will ends up taking it back to like his house. So he ends up knocking. And that's when he ends up seeing Nolan. And it's because he's intimidating, but it's also like extremely awkward. Like he's just like analyzing him like under a microscope. It's like what is like uncomfortable. And so he's like, oh yeah, I'll make sure I get back to him. But through this is where he learns that Mark isn't really at home at that moment. And he's like, it's fine. Like, he'll take care of himself. It's like, yeah, okay. And then, next day, still no calls, no text. Will's worried, right? He's even kind of asked around to some of Mark's acquaintances, like, have you seen him? What's going on, right? And they've all said, like, Mark, he's cut errands, so he's called out. And then he kind of hears his voice, so he turns and he sees Mark talking to Eve. Will doesn't know Eve, but still, that's who he's talking to. And so this is where, he quickly looks away and just, starts speed walking away. So he's not noticed by them. And this is where Will starts to feel like he's like an idiot, because it's like, of course, I'm not that important in his life. Like, we're just friends. Like, it's, so he starts to feel really dumb because, no calls, no texts, nothing. And, he was real worried. So he starts to feel, he's like, of course I'm not that important to him. So feels real dumb. And then it doesn't matter anyway, because the next day he accidentally makes eye contact with Eve. And he quickly is like, oh, put on a smile quick. It's like, oh, hi. And it's like, oh, you're Will, right? It's like, yeah. So this is when she explains to him. It's like, yeah, Mark broke his phone. Like, his phone got broken and he got beat up a little bit. And quickly, kind of immediately, all thoughts of like anything that he thought before vanished. Because now it's like Mark's injured. Oh my god, why didn't I check on him? What's happening? And so he Eve calms him down, obviously, because like he's just a little bit bruised, but he's fine. And then they kind of quickly go into teasing because she's like, don't tell him I said this, but he's nonstop talked about you the entire time and kept looking over to your dorm. Like, he clearly wants to go see you. So it's like, so this kind of pushes Will to go see Mark because he didn't want to like intrude, but hearing that obviously Mark was like talking about him and clearly looking on the dorm. Wow. So this is what pushes him to go check for him. So he goes over to the house and oh my god, it's him. He answers the door, right? And so Mark is like, clearly has like a bruised cheek. He's like, Jesus. He's like, I heard from Eve, like, you got a little beat up. So this is where Mark explains, like, yeah, I didn't want to be a burden. What? So Will's like, shut up. Like, you're an idiot. Like, you're not going to be like a burden. But it's crazy how they both had the same thoughts anyway. But then they kind of hang out for a bit because Mark ends up talking about how he obviously wanted to, he just didn't know how to, and he didn't want to be a burden to him, but he really did want to see him. And because it was raining, Mark goes get some towels and Will ends up taking up his glasses. He does close his eyes though, because he's like, I don't want to be reading his mind. Doesn't matter anyway, he catches a glimpse because Mark starts talking and about how like he really wanted to see him and how like he really wanted to see him. And then he catches like a glimpse of like what he was like in his mind. He's like, all right, keep it cool, don't panic. And like Mark's like trying to talk himself into like, keep it cool, it'll be fine, just keep it cool. But he talks about how he missed him a lot, even when they didn't really see each other. It's like he missed him so much. So it's like, oh yeah, because like how are you supposed to respond to that? I mean, clearly he feels the same way though. But then, Mark ends up talking like him into staying a bit longer. So they do end up hanging it out. And then Mark decides, I'll walk you back to the dorm, even though it's really not that far away. But they end up walking him back. And there's clearly some kind of like tension there. Not like in a bad way. It's just clear like there's something more there. But none of them really know how, like they don't know how to say it. And so they just end up going their separate ways and saying goodnight. A week later, they basically started like a routine of walking each other home. And because Mark often kind of leaves, because, here at work, it leaves Will with Amber and Eve. So that's like their little friendship group. And they had decided like, oh, let's go to the movies. So they didn't go to the movies. They end up watching like some little like rom-com. And during it, when a confession scene, Will can't help but like look over to Mark and kind of wonder like, is he thinking the same thing? Because he was so like intensely focused on it. And then after the movies, when they were walking back, that's when Will kind of asked, like, cause he disappears so often. It's like, are you like? So he asks about it. It's like, are you okay? And Mark, that like even though he really wants to tell him, like he can't. It's not that he doesn't trust him, but he just can't. And so Mark or Will kind of just takes this and he thinks about like for like a split second reading his mind, like he could, but he doesn't want to cross that line. And we see it more later too when like their feelings kind of become more clear. Like it would be so easy for him to read his mind, to see like if he likes him too, but he doesn't want to use his powers just to see that. He wants to kind of for it to happen naturally. Is that the, I don't know. But he doesn't use it, like he says, against it because he'd be crossing a line, and instead just accepts it. And it's like, I'll be here, like I'm here for you if you ever need anything. And that's where Mark makes a comment like, oh, you're real nice. It's like, I'm only really nice to you. It's like I'm only really nice to you. It's like, well, there's incentive there. It's that you like him, but whatever. Of course, nothing really lasts because this is where, again, timelines shifted around because they met later. But this is where Guardians of the Globe are now dead. So, that comes as a shock to like everyone. But especially since during school, Mark's thinking about like, I think I'm gonna skip, right? And this is where he says like, my dad's in hospital, it's real bad. Like it kind of feels like everything's falling apart. And so Will, always being there, it's like, if you want to be alone, that's fine. But if not, like I'm always here. And so this is where he offers them, it's like, I'll make you some food, like, because it's kind of like he doesn't want to be alone. But he's like, I'll make you some food. Like, you'll be somewhat fine. I mean, not really fine, but you'll forget about it for a moment. During, him making food is when Mark does say that he is scared. I mean, he doesn't say specifically what it is because obviously, but he does say that he's scared. How he thought, everything's messed up and how he thought he could handle everything, and then it just is too much. It falls apart. And, you know, speaking like vaguely, it doesn't really have to use specifically because he's not going to say it. But, Will just ends up reassuring him. It's like, I'm sorry, like, whatever happened to your dad, even though he's a little intimidating. But, it's like that he'll always be there for him. He just, like, the entire time they're together, he reassures him, takes his mind off of it. By the end of it, Mark does end up thanking him for being there for him and not asking. And even though Will, like, he does want to ask, like, he really does, like, what's going on? Like, he really does want to ask specific questions, but he knows that would just put more pressure on Mark. Because, and especially at a time like this, like, who really wants to be, like, interrogated, even if it's coming from, like, a place of, like, wanting to understand? Not really the greatest time. Since then, though, Will has, like, kind of stuck close to Mark and has never really left his side in this moment. And so, like, he's always just kind of been the presence, been there for him, and especially just like a silent presence there cooking, never really asking too many questions because it's not what he needs right now. So when he hears, like, oh, his dad woke up, he's like, that's great, like, it's great news. But then he kind of sees Mark and he looks troubled, he's not really smiling, and it's like, Mark makes a comment of, like, it feels like it's not really over. Of course, Will doesn't know what he's talking about, so Mark just kind of drops it, and Will doesn't, decide to question it, because not really what he needs, even though he so badly wants to know. And then an attack happens, and of course, this is where he meets him as invincible. During the attack, Will gets, like, thrown to the ground, glasses somewhere, and so, with Invincible being right there, kind of, like, protecting him, he asks, like, oh, are you okay? But, in full, like, his thoughts, he can hear all of them, and they're just panic surrounding Will. Like, oh my god, why did he fall like that? Is he okay? No, like, don't be hurt. Like, oh my god, like, is he gonna forget me? Because, like, it was a hard fall. And it's like, why? Like, I mean, yeah, it's one thing to be panicked over a civilian, but, like, to also know his name specifically and to be that panicked over it, what's, it's like, what? And Will doesn't really give anything away because he instantly, recognizes the voice, the tone. It's Mark. He doesn't give anything away, though, even as, like, he kind of, doesn't ask any question. It doesn't go, like, Mark, is that you? He's just, like, silently, like, oh my god, this is why you were, like, beat up and bruised and, like, gone at such odd times. It's you. But he doesn't say anything. And because, they were going to have dinner over at Mark's house, Will does call, like, try not to sound like as, like, panicked or, like, kind of flustered, saying, like, he has urgent business, like, oh, he's got something, like, really important to do, so he cancels on Mark. And really it's because he's got to compose himself because he's so embarrassed, because he plenty of times had complimented Invincible of being, like, oh, so handsome, charming, to Mark's face. And so, Mark would always be a little flustered. Didn't know why. Now it makes sense. He's basically saying he was handsome and charming, which, he also thinks, but he doesn't mean to say it to his face. And so Will is now taking the time to, like, calm himself down because before he has to meet him, because he can't avoid him forever, right? So, but then it was like during the night is when he gets knocked on his door, and it's Cecil, and he's there because obviously, he's with the government. They heard, oh, we heard about your powers. Will's freaked out immediately, but he's reassures him, not gonna arrest you, you're fine. And then he's like, he's basically there to like recruit him. He's like, we need you to use your powers to basically uncover what happened to Guardians Globe and basically what's going on with Omni-Man. Will, no idea what's going on. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Cecil wastes like no time in laying it all out for Will, saying that the suspect obviously being Omni-Man and how that they're choosing him because he has what no one else has, which is he's close to Mark, and Nolan's not really all that suspicious of him. He might look at him a certain way, but that's more probably of like, ugh, a human that Mark's attached to, like, like, oh, he's in the way, but nothing like too suspicious of anything. So they look at it as like an opportunity, but he's not going to force Will to like accept this. But they lay out the files and how, because they already knew Mark was invincible. Okay, that was obviously. And how Nolan is Omni-Man. And at first Will's like, there's no way he would do this. He's a hero. I mean, why would he even kill any of them? So they leave here. So they go their separate ways. He's still leaving, saying that it's up to him, because not going to force him, but it does give Will like time to like really think about it. And so the next day they end up like him and Mark, because they haven't hung out in a while, right? So him and Mark go to the amusement park. And this is really what cements the idea of like Will going all in, because during that time, like he has like a really fun time, but he's still weighed down by, what Cecil told him. And he ends up asking Mark about it. It's like, what would you do if someone you love was hiding like something from you? And Mark, obviously, it's like, well, I want them to, like, I want to hear their side. I don't want them to explain themselves. And so Will wants to protect Mark. He wants to stand by his side. So he jumps all in to be like, I'll do it, but I'm doing it my way. And they train for a while, and Will gets pretty over it, right? He's tired of reading like agents, like he wants to get this over with. And so his first task is just to hang out with Mark, read his mind, because Cecil, like, they don't know if he knows about Nolan and everything, or if he's being played like the rest of them. So they end up going to a cat cafe, and the entire day, and the entire time, like, they're playing with the cats, and that's when he does ask, right? Because after being flustered of like, wow, he's so cute, it's like, oh, have fun, don't. So, but he does ask, with the Guardians, do you hear anything new? Like, oh, what could have happened? And this entire time, Mark is like thinking, like, there's no way, like, they're like almost doubts, right? His dad was beat really bad, but there's no way his dad could have done it, right? And it's like, maybe he just needs to give him time and he'll tell us something. It's like, because it's clear like he's kind of hiding something, but he's thinking maybe if he gives him time, he'll eventually tell him. There's no way he could have done this. And, he wishes he could tell Will everything. And so that kind of cements like, okay, yeah, he doesn't really know anything. So Will kind of stopped reading his mind for like the rest of the day. Because, like, there's nothing to gain. He really doesn't know anything. Since then, he never really took off the glasses to read his mind. No point. But then he goes back to training his powers, right? He's staying in a little room observing the heroes and other contestants like down in the room, right? And he's probably seeing E there. He's like, oh, there she is. Thoughts often drifting off to Amber. Okay. And so, listening to Rex's thoughts, and he's not really, paying all that much attention. He's behind the glass, so it's not like anyone really won't see him, but he's not really paying all that much attention until like a cold, kind of sharp voice saying pathetic. And he recognized that instantly. Like the amount of like disdain coming off of that is like, oh, okay. And so like he across like the glass on the other side, is Nolan also observing the people down there. And instantly his next thought was like, ugh, they're pathetic. They don't even compare to the so-called guardians I killed. All right, well, that took like 2 seconds. Wow. And then it was like in the panic, but it was also, it's like his powers like evolved in that moment. And so now he was seeing Nolan's memories. Like he was also hearing his thoughts too as he was like watching them. And he's just unfazed and counting just as he is killing them. And it's like, oh no. Yeah, he killed them. he did it. He definitely did it. He quickly like shoves his glasses back on and like kind of walks out because like he needs air after just basically witnessing all their deaths and knowing that definitely like Nolan, yep, he did it. So, especially having complicated feelings with like that's Mark's dad, and he doesn't know that his dad's a murderer. So he's just there. So he was too shaken up and scared to really even say anything. So he doesn't like he just goes home. Like he doesn't even to like kind of process it. But the next day he does end up going to Cecil and he tells him like it was him. It was definitely him. And so this is when they talk about what their next steps are and what to do. And so, Will wants to tell Mark because, I mean, he deserves to know, but Cecil kind of holds it back because it's like he's not exactly like that'll definitely break him. Like in an some like emotional state, it'll definitely break him, right? Who wants to believe that about their own like their own father or someone they love? And so holds back on telling Mark about it, especially since if it ends up like if he chooses Nolan's side, what then? They're not prepared for anything. And so that's where we'll like make some promise like if it comes down to it and he chooses Nolan, don't like don't hurt him too badly. Cause like I've seen you take him down, but it's like, oh my god, don't kill him. Like it just because he can't, like, even if he does choose him, it's like, it'll definitely be heartbreaking, but it's like, maybe there's some way they could still salvage it. Cecil does end up giving him, like, a little earpiece so that he could, because if things are gonna go down, he's got no one around him. He's gonna, because at some point, it's probably, like, no one's definitely gonna, like, it's gonna happen. It's kind of only a matter of time, right? And he's gotta figure out when and also kind of set up precautions. But after that, nothing's the same anymore. And he kind of sort of starts avoiding Mark. Like even in text, he doesn't even really, oh, I'm too busy or he just like, to the point where Mark, like he's real worried, right? And he talks about it with Amber and Eve. And he's like, it feels like he's kind of shutting me out. Like it's like, I'm worried for him. And because they didn't have any type of fight and do anything. It's like, are you keeping something from him? It's like, well, I didn't tell him I'm invincible. Okay, so, and so, but he ends up, like, oh, let's go to the amusement park. I don't know why it's always the amusement park. But even then, during the amusement park, something happens, Marcus goes invincible, and he doesn't even want to, like, think of looking back at Will to see his face. And that's when he decides, I have to tell him. Like, he's like, I have to tell him that I'm invincible. And he does so just by literally showing up, just in his costume. And Mark can't really nail what the, like, expression he has. Like, at first it's clearly, like, confused, but then it kind of shifts into something more complicated. And also because we know Will's thinking, he's like, what the fuck is he doing here in his costume? Like, what is he doing? And so he ends up taking him, like, flying into the sky. And he's like, I just wanted to see you. And so Will kind of plays up the part of, like, I had no idea you were invincible. Because, he's not going to say I read your mind. But this makes Will feel like even worse, right? He was already kind of keeping the secret from Mark that your dad's a murderer. And so he already felt awful about that. And now to see him confessing, like, just laying it all out there for him, it's like, I'm invincible. It makes him feel worse. And how he's like, I am a terrible person. Like, I can't even tell you, like, what secrets I'm keeping. Like, I can't, especially since at the end of it, he's like, he also confessed to me. He's like, I love you. It's like, oh, fantastic. It's like, I can't even tell you, like, what my secret is. I can't tell anything. It's like, it's like, I don't feel worthy of even being liked. And it's like, I'm not really sure. And Mark's like, keep going. It's like, I'm sure enough for the both of us. That's fine. It's like, but, all Mark wants is like, you don't have to tell me right now. It's like, just stay with me. Like, that's all he wants. It's like, you don't have to tell me in the moment. Just be here with me. And so they do end up kissing. So it's very sweet as he, like, drops him off back at his house. But to see, like, Will, like, completely broken down because he couldn't tell him anything was, like, sad. As time goes on, they kind of fall into, like, a routine of cute little dates between them. And they're, because, like, it's shifted. Now they've basically, like, confessed. Like, of course, they like each other. And then it kind of shifts a little bit. Doesn't go completely sideways, but kind of, because he gets invited over to dinner at his place. He used to go over there, kind of stopped. I mean, why would, And he's nervous, because why wouldn't he be? I don't want to be in the same room as Omni-Man. Like, I don't want to be in the same room as him. So, but he's really hoping, it's like, well, maybe he won't be there. No, he's there. So they end up having dinner, and it's not too bad. And then Nolan just can't help himself and ask questions. And it's like, oh, joy. And the questions seem like real, like, it's like, put down the knife as you're talking to me. I don't feel comfortable. But as he's, like, asking about him, it's like, oh, like, you used to come over a lot. You know, anymore. Like, what happened? It's like, oh, it's like, Will's, like, trying to keep his composure. Like, don't over-explain. Don't do anything. Like, just keep it, don't give him reason to suspect. So he's like, oh, just got busy with school and just everything. So, yeah, it's like, they're just out of nowhere, like superheroes. Like, what? Yes. What is this? What are we shifting between? And so, but he just, it's like, it's not even, like, really interrogate. It's like interrogation and a warning, because then he's like, oh, Mark really cares about you, And it's like, is this one of those parental warnings, or like just like a threat of, like, I'll kill you? It's like something more is going on, but it's like, Mark really cares for you. It's like, yeah, I care for Mark too. It's like, please don't. It's like, he's like, and that's when he's like, you think before you speak a lot. Like, you're very cautious. It's like, it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess so. It's like, I mean, not really used to this or anything. But then he's like, oh, but sometimes thinking too much make you miss something important. This man knows. He knows something. What is going on? Who just says this in normal wit? This isn't, like, what are we saying right now? But he's just like, oh yeah, sometimes, like, I just, need time to, like, think, about, like, what he's gonna say. And he's like, the world doesn't give everyone time. What is this conversation? This is like, I don't even know if this would be like, oh, it's like a veiled threat. I feel like this is just a threat. This is what this is now. This is just a threat. Then he's like, just asking, he's like, so what if Mark changes one day? Like, are you still gonna be by his side? It's like, I mean, I don't know what the future holds, because it's like, at this point, lost. What are we talking about now? Like, we're so focused on Mark. It's like, what if you change one day? It's like, I don't know what the future holds, but I'll still be by his side. It's like, I hope you don't regret those words. What are we talking about? We've lost the plot. I don't even. He's just talking about, like, how I was like, oh, just speaking from experience, like, people often say things but don't know the cost of them. It's like, this is the most cryptic conversation. Like, What? It's like, I felt threatened. I feel threatened. Put down the knife as you're talking to me. But, it kind of ends quickly because Mark comes back in. But, like, Jesus, my guy. But after the whole dinner thing, because he's had the whole earpiece in, like, this entire time, he wears it all the time. When he gets far enough away, he's like, you heard, like, Cecil, like, he's talking to him. It's like, he heard all that. It's like, okay, accelerated plan, we're moving forward because he's starting to get suspicious. And so now Will's task is like to start kind of dropping hints to Debbie. And at this point, it's like when we're counting down to something, like 29 days to like 25. Like, so we're counting down to something. They end up going over like footage, like 'cause they had cameras in, their house. And in their house, like they could see like they're accelerating their plan like even further because it's like they could see he's clearly trying to push Mark away from everyone to like isolate him because he's saying like don't get close to the Guardians, especially don't get close to William. And Mark like isn't listening because why would he? Like they may not be like him because he's like trying to push like, oh well, they're not Viltrumites, so they don't. But like Mark doesn't really care. They're his friends, and Will even more is like, you know that's the person he loves and cares for. Like he does not care. And of course, Nolan also, he's like, I've warned you over and over. It's like, that's a threat at this point. Like, he's clearly, he's winding up to take them out. And so now they gotta think even faster. So Will is going in. He gets there before Mark and Nolan. It's like, oh, they're not back yet. It's fine. So he goes over there, try and kind of get Debbie thinking, basically. Because he can't just, like, outright tell her. But it's to get her thinking and get her to come to conclusion on her own that something's not right. And so, she catches on kind of quickly, but he does question, like, it's like, you ever wondered about, like, Omni-Man, like, the Guardians? Like, what would happen? And so it does get Debbie really thinking. So she does go to, like, his old suit, that he had when he was, like, beaten. And so she does end up bringing that to them. And, like, as this is going on, you can see the days are, like, counting down. And you can clearly see it's like, oh, we're counting down to that day. In between all this, the Guardians are, like, told everything, like, how man, the one that killed them, and he shows, like, a picture of Will on the screen. It's like, and this is the person who basically found all that out, and who you're going to protect, because no doubt he's going to gun for him. Completely different reason, but still. And so Eve, obviously, is, like, surprised, and so she's like, was all this, like a setup? Like, he wasn't even really, really friends with, like, Mark, and was just kind of pretending. And Cecil is like, no, we dragged him into it, if anything. But, like, all of that, like, was real. He just decided to do this, to protect Mark and stand by him. And then the day finally comes, and Will's, like, panicking, like, holy shit. It's the day, like, it's code black. It is war, right? And this is when, thank God for the trackers on Will, right? So the Guardians immediately headed over to him to get him to a safe place. Not that they could get to him first, because the first one to get to him is Nolan, because of course, thankfully, just as like Nolan was like about to go in for the kill, Immortal and like the Guardians showed up, and Rex is the one to like get him out of there. To GDA, I mean, also he needs medical attention because he passes out, and as he's passed out, Mark is also there, and he's kind of like showing the truth of like, your dad's a murderer, and also that's like behind a one-way mirror he sees Will, and it's like, yeah, your dad tried to kill him, and he sees like the footage of it. So now he's like pissed off, and he's like, he's confused, he's angry, but he's like, I'm not gonna let him hurt anymore, like people I care about. So he's ready to go, and so he joins the fight. Will wakes up, and he's immediately like, okay, let's get to work. Doesn't care to rest. He's like, we got work to do. So he immediately goes to like the control center where all the cameras are, And he immediately starts taking control, right? Because he's reading, like, even through the cameras, he's reading Nolan's thoughts, what his next moves are, and he's guiding the Guardians to dodge, to attack, to get civilians out of certain places that he's going to attack purposely. He's working. He's working overtime. So he's working. He's become basically the brain of the operation. And when it faces off against Nolan and Mark, that's when, he reads his mind, and it's like Nolan hesitates. Even if kind of briefly, he does hesitate. But kind of quickly overwhelmed. And they lose sight of him. Like, the camera gets, the Guardian's 2 minutes away. Like, he's like, no, Mark needs help now. So he's teleporting there. And it's like, this is the worst idea. But he ends up going there alone. And he's looking for him. He's calling out to him. And then he kind of hears it, like, before he really sees Nolan. And he took off, like, into the sky. And then he kind of sees, Mark, surrounded in blood. Too much blood for, like, a human to survive. And this is when we're kind of, like, his tracker says, like, presumed dead, right? And this is where we're kind of left on a cliffhanger, because the next scene we get is, like, on the news, everyone kind of, like, Invincible's, like, presumed dead, and they're, like, all throwing, I was supposed to say a party, not a party, but, like, rest in peace, like, Invincible. And we see William, like, curled up in bed, and he's like, you broke your promise. It's like, but he's not dead, right? It's like, he's probably, too much blood for a human to survive, so probably not, but that is where, like, it leaves off on a cliffhanger. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!